Basidio Mycota and Basidio spores under external rounded tops, giving protection outdoors, such as the caps on top of mushrooms. People eat all the time when they're sauteed or new and fresh, and sometimes they're even fried. You'd be surprised how many people actually grow them inside and make a profit off of illegal mushrooms of psilocybin, which is the genus that hallucinogens are classified, as well as polypores and puffballs, even jelly fungi. Mushrooms and fungi, they live all around. With 4 different phylums, you see them in town.
Ustilla gitomycosis is one of the subclasses of Basidio mycota. It's also known as smuts. They tend to be found near grain crops. They like to host themselves on one of the flowering cereal plants, and this is where they feed themselves and multiply. Unlike rusts who need to parasite on more than one plant and on a host plant, smuts are able to survive on only one host plant. Once hosted onto one of these grain plants, the smuts will infest the entire plant, and they like to target specific organs to shut down that plant to absorb the nutrients to further their growth. Smuts don't produce fruit budding bodies, but they do produce basidia that form germinating haploid cells. These will typically float in the air to other compatible mating strains, and they will form a dikaryon. Once this dikaryon is formed, it becomes obligated to parasite itself onto one of the plants that I mentioned. Once the smut has hosted itself onto one of the plants, the cell becomes rounded and it breaks apart to form a very thick wall. This thick wall helps the smut to survive very harsh conditions, so it can survive on these dry grain crops. One good way to identify the difference between rusts and smuts is that smuts tend to be black and powdery, and they will infect the entire host plant.
Hi, this is Liz, and today I'm going to talk to you about rusts. Rusts belong to the family Uridineomycetes, which are one of 3 classified groups of the fungi Basidio mycota. Rusts are a plant disease, usually a colored powder that can be found on leaves, stems, and fruit of a healthy growing plant such as this rose bush. And rusts reproduce asexually, and their spores are carried by wind, water, and insects to the plant. They get their food by taking in nutrients from living cells, making them biotrophs. Some common examples of rusts are white pine blister rust, wheat stem rust, and coffee rust. These rusts are harmful to agriculture and have devastating effects on crops. Thank you.
My name is Brizeta Castro, and I will be talking about the psilocybin mushroom.
The psilocybin is found in over 200 species of Basidio mycota mushrooms. Some of the mushrooms that contain psilocybin are Genera, Conocybe, Copelandia, and Gallerina. When psilocybin is consumed, it is broken down to produce psilocin, which is what causes the psychedelic effects. The majority of these mushrooms are found in Mexico, but also expanded to the U.S., Canada, Europe, and Asia. They tend to grow in the meadows and woods of the subtropics and tropics, usually in soils rich in humus and plant debris. Although most people might think that psilocybin mushrooms, also known as shrooms, have only been used for recreational use, are mistaken, because archaeologists have found evidence of shrooms being used for religious communion and healing in Mexico and Central America for thousands of years. In today's 21st century, people who take shrooms take them for the tingling physical sensation, increased sensitivity to music, and
And I'm about to describe to you guys the type of Basidia mycota. It is called the shelf fungi, which practically looks like shells on trees. The shelf fungi look like this. They look pretty cool. They kind of look like stairs on the trees. I kind of want to get on top of one. The shelf fungi can be found on many places, including some areas of the United States, but are mostly found on tropical and subtropical forests. The shelf fungi tend to live on beautiful old trees that can either be dead or alive. The shelf fungi tend to, get nutrients from the tree on which they live on. Obviously my tree doesn't have any shelf fungi because it is not old and we take care of them
And once the shell fungi infects the tree, there is no way to remove it. Some shell funguses are edible and some are inedible. An example of an edible fungus, it's called the chicken of the wood. The chicken of the wood looks like this. It kind of looks like real chicken. The chicken of the woods, it's a type of shell fungi that can be cooked, but it is said to cause stomach aches. Another type of shell fungi that is edible but is used mostly for medical use, it is called the turkey tail bracket fungus. This type of fungus looks like this. This is how it looks. And it kind of looks like turkey tail, or the thing on the turkey. The turkey tail, it is used for treatment of the esophagus, the stomach, the colon, and some cancers. And this was a view of the shell fungi.
Faster than Ratatouille, producing the score. You'd be surprised at the number of items there's only four. You'd be surprised at the number of items is only four.
A puffball is a mushroom that looks like a ball when it has matured. They have a distinguishing feature because they do not have an open cap with spore-bearing gills. Instead, their spores are produced internally, giving them spore-bearing flesh. They can also be identified by their shallow craters, misshapen spherical shape, and the fact that they have no stem like most other mushrooms. They can range from the size of a golf ball and can be as large as a watermelon. Also, puffballs are not poisonous and they're edible when they're young. They're no longer edible when they're mature because they're then toxic. In addition, giant puffballs are found in Central and Eastern America and in Canada. They are generally found in meadows, under small stands of trees, and in forest openings. They're commonly grown during the late summer in the months of August and September. Moreover, puffballs' reproductive structures are made up of a tangle of tiny strands called hyphae. When all of these strands come together, they are then called mycelium. To conclude, puffballs are decomposers. They get their food from decaying materials that have been left behind by other organisms. They absorb their food through the cell walls of the hyphae.